Now, the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, has been urged to resurrect the policy of migrant pushbacks in the Channel and pursue a plan B to get his Stop the Boats pledge back on track. Now Conservative MPs want Border Force to mimic the Greek Navy, deploy UK border guards on jet skis to physically force the dinghies back to France. Could this ever happen? It seems that many people think this just is not possible as a plan. It was abandoned in April last year. That was just days before a High Court legal challenge. All of this comes, of course, as migrants have been removed from the Bibby Stockholm barge in Dorset after the bacteria was found, the Legionella bacteria was found in the water. All of those on board are likely to be taken to new accommodation. I believe they have already been taken to accommodation in hotels. So joining me now is international human rights lawyer David Haigh and the director of the Centre for Migration and Economic Prosperity, Stephen Wolfe. Thank you very much indeed. I'm not sure if you heard what Mark White was saying there, Stephen, giving us the very latest on the tragedy in the Channel, well, very early this morning, about 4 a.m., 5 a.m. Loss of life. We know that 6 people have been confirmed dead who made this crossing or attempted this crossing. This is a sobering reminder, isn't it, Stephen, of just how dangerous this route is and how important it is that the government gets to grips with the Channel crisis.
Yes, it's another appallingly sad day to show that the failure of this government, the French government, and the European Union's policy on asylum and immigration. And what's happening now is the loss of lives, not just in the Channel, but we know they occur in the waters towards Italy. And until the governments get together and start looking at this more seriously, rather than tinkering at the edges, as they seem to be doing at the moment, we will be talking about another tragedy another time in the near future, I would say.
Thank you, Stephen. David, just your reaction to the tragedy, really, and what this means for government policy, or what it should mean for government policy going forward. We can see with our eyes just how unsustainable and tragic this route can be. And what do you think the government needs to do moving forward? Difficult question.
Good afternoon, Emily. I think it's a very dark day for Europe and for human rights. It's more evidence, if ever, that we needed it, that we've got a government that's completely incapable of governing, certainly when it comes to illegal migrants. You've gone from devastating incompetence now to deadly, and it's going to get worse. They are completely incapable of managing this situation. And in terms of a solution, what we've seen is a government that doesn't have a solution. They don't have one. It's press release after press release, and people are now dying. And insincere comments from the Suella Braverman wishing her sympathy to those that have suffered is just that insincere. And I think we're coming to a stage where, if this carries on, bearing in mind that Stop the Boats is one of Rishi Sunak's prime policies, you're going to have a situation where there'll be even more calls for the government to stand down.
David, why do you say her comments are insincere? Presumably, you would agree that Suella Braverman, as Home Secretary, is trying to resolve this problem, or do you not accept that?
As I've said before, I think what Suella Braverman doing in the Conservative Party, sadly, is they're weaponising essentially immigration and illegal migrants particularly to assist them winning votes. And I don't think, if she actually wanted to get control of the situation, protect our borders, and have genuine asylum seekers actually getting asylum cases passed through and their lives improved, the policies that she's putting in place, the press releases, and every couple of days it's a new press release, it's a new white elephant policy, she would be doing things properly, and she's not.
Hang on, Stephen, is that fair? Because we have the illegal migration bill, for example. It's been passed, it will become an act, and that is intended to stop the flow of migrants crossing the Channel. It's not fair to say, is it, that this is just a government coming up with all sorts of random policies to try and create division and stoke anger at this issue? I'm not sure that's fair. The government is putting forward many policies.
Well, there's much that David and I agree on in policies, but I don't agree with him that the policies of the government at the moment with the Illegal Migration Act, its attempt on Rwanda, the Bibi boats, dealing with housing, is all about stoking hatred and division between people in the country at all. No, what it's actually trying to do is solve a serious problem that has caused the awful circumstances that we see today. And whilst people smugglers are making huge sums of money out of it, they don't care whether people are dying in the channel. And at least the government is trying to do something to stop those boats. Now, we might not agree that all their policies will work. We might not agree with those policies at all, as you saw in some of the pictures and the clips there from the Dorset Black Lives Matter group. There are those who are going to say, let's just bring people in as whenever we can. There are those who are going to, like me, say, have managed migration and let's deal with illegal migrants and only have genuine asylum seekers. And the government has got to try and deal with the cost of the taxpayer, the potential for lives are lost, but it also has the responsibility to deal with other countries who are not doing their bit in the same way. Everybody is juggling, but no one is actually really being effective. And that's because they do not know the solution to preventing hundreds of thousands of people from the poorest countries of the world seeking a better life in Europe, irrespective of them being genuine asylum seekers.
Stephen, one thing the government is guilty of is being seen to blame everyone else but themselves. Who do you blame for the government's failure to enact policies that will actually do something about this problem?
Oh, look, I would certainly say that in some ways it's the government's fault because they didn't prepare well enough. Or maybe, for example, when you look at the illness on the Bibi boats that you're seeing through polluted water. But there is also responsibility on the Labour government for opposing everything that they do. There are certain charities and trade unions that whatever happens, they will always challenge the government rather than seeing the other side of the picture. And that is what's causing the division. The general public in this country recognize the need for genuine asylum seekers. The general public in this country do not believe that illegal migrants who are seeking economic benefits should be allowed to be here. And they are now seeing the asylum ceiling fall apart because of the divisions between the two extreme sides of those who are not accepting that illegal migrants and economic migrants shouldn't be using the asylum system.
David, yesterday I spoke to a representative of Amnesty International, and he seemed to think, he claimed that the Home Office have simply stopped processing asylum claims. I think he believed that this was on purpose for one reason or another. Can you clarify whether that is true? Because it seems to me unfathomable that asylum claims aren't being processed. The government says that they want to get grips with the backlog in the next year or so.
I mean, I'm not up to date with whether or not that's true or not, so I wouldn't be able to comment specifically. But, you know, even if they were currently being processed, asylum claims are taking years. So would we notice in any event if they were delayed for, if they were paused, as it were, for a few weeks? I mean, that's the comment that I would make. I don't know specifically if what Amnesty International has said is correct. But as I said, because they're taking so long in any event, would we notice? And I think that is part of, you know, it's not just one solution to the problem that we've got. One of the things is obviously the asylum backlog is so considerably significant, and nothing is being done to address it. So if they have paused it, that does beg the question why.
Yeah, and Stephen, just lastly, a lot of our viewers have been writing in, they're asking why, if this boat capsized 5 miles away from the French coast, were migrants taken all the way to Dover? Do you understand what's going on there in terms of the division of labour?
No, I don't. All I know is that from the press reports that we've seen is that there are some that were taken to France, others that were taken on boats and brought to the UK. And I suspect that in the imbroglio of what was happening in the waters, which were, as your previous commentator, that Home Affairs spokesman said, that was about 20-mile-an-hour winds, is that in the process of trying to save as many lives as possible, the French and the UK governments work together. Now, in these circumstances, I don't have a problem with that. I think it's best to save lives. And if they go to France or they go to the UK, we shouldn't really care. It's about making sure that those people's lives are saved. And I do understand those who say perhaps it should have gone to France. But in these circumstances, we've got to put humanity first.
Well, thank you very much indeed for your time. Stephen Wolfe, Director of the Centre for Migration and Economic Prosperity, and David Haigh, International Human Rights Lawyer. Thank you very much.